At the class reunion, when Asher embraced his ex-girlfriend to drink a toast, everyone's gaze turned to me. They think that I, the legitimate fiancé, would flip the table, break down in tears, and disrupt the gathering. But I simply watched their ambiguous actions quietly. Asher didn't know that after the party, I was lying on the abs of the brother we were praising for being a perfect match, my face flushed. Asher held a reunion for his long-lost ex-girlfriend and specifically invited me, his fiancée, to show my support. Everyone knew how accommodating I was towards Asher, having pursued him for a long time before we got together. No matter how Asher provoked me, I remained indifferent, still obediently following behind him. At the class reunion, he raised his glass and intimately shared a toast with his ex-girlfriend. He even kissed the corner of her upturned mouth. Everyone wants to see me embarrassed, angry, and broken. But I just took a sip of the red wine in my glass as if nothing was happening. Asher, you and Jessica haven't seen each other for so many years, yet you still make such a perfect match. Why not rekindle your past today? That way, youth won't be left with regrets. Xander is Asher's brother, and he keeps teasing while raising his glass. Asher smiles but says nothing, his gaze frequently glancing towards my position. Seeing me unmoved, his expression darkens, and he turns to kiss his ex-girlfriend again. Before the party started, he had already bet that I wouldn't last 3 seconds. My nonchalant demeanor, however, undermined his lofty pride. The moment I stood up, all eyes were on me. Asher seemed to have anticipated the development of events, protecting his ex-girlfriend like a treasure behind him. He feigned a frown, suggesting they could discuss it at home later, and that the position of Mrs. Shen was still yours. No need. I took off the ring from my ring finger and threw it into the wine glass he had drunk from. The remaining red wine engulfed the silver-white ring. He was taken aback, not expecting that I had such great capabilities. Think it over, and don't beg me to get back together when you return home. I scoffed. My classmates at the table pleaded for me, saying I had lost my mind. They all knew that Asher was more important to me than my own life. After so much effort to finally win Asher over, I was now being told to just let go. Asher, is Evelyn drunk? Why is she starting to talk nonsense? Asher snorted disdainfully, waiting for me to realize my mistake and plead pitifully. But I turned and left the party without looking back. After 2 seconds of silence, Asher's frown relaxed. I'm tired of the game of wanting to catch, but letting go. Yes. He has been through the ups and downs of love, he can see through any trick. Anyway, when I got home at night, I pitifully pleaded with him, willingly making him dinner and hangover soup. She's not even happy with being given an identity. Mrs. Shen is something that countless people desire. Who knows, she might secretly cry later. Asher chuckled lightly, don't mind her, she'll be back soon. He knows better than anyone that when I was chasing him, I was like an indestructible cockroach. No matter how he struck me down, the next day I would still show up at the door of his company with a smile, bringing him breakfast. Asher always firmly believed that I couldn't live without him. After returning to the rental apartment, I packed up my things and moved out. This rental was the closest one I had rented to Asher's company, originally to bring him breakfast. Without Asher, there was no need to work every day to pay this expensive rent. After becoming homeless, I stood on the street with my suitcase, unsure of where to go. For all these years, I had been Asher's loyal dog. No matter how he messed around outside, I still obediently waited at home to make him hangover soup. I always thought I would be the exception who could win him back. But all these years, he only gave me a bare ring and a hollow title that meant nothing. If I were to act according to my old character, I would go to great lengths to please him, begging him not to flirt with others outside. All I received was an impatient response. I still kept a smile on my face. He enjoyed this sense of superiority. But this familiar sense of nobility was about to be ruined by his good brother. I hailed a taxi and headed to my destination. I took out the crumpled business card from my bag and dialed the number on it. Xander, I'm at your doorstep. I have nowhere to go, can I stay at your place for a while? Half a month ago, Xander handed me a business card. He said he had a dream. In the dream, Asher kissed his ex-girlfriend at a party, and I desperately pleaded with Asher to cut off all contact with her. When his ex-girlfriend found out, she broke my legs, dug out my tongue, and tied me to a stone before throwing me into the river. Meanwhile, my beloved fiancé Asher watched with great interest, not lifting a finger to stop it. In the end, Xander also fell victim to the pressure and schemes of Asher and his ex-girlfriend, leading to the company's bankruptcy, leaving him homeless, and ultimately beaten to death. If you don't want this kind of thing to happen, back off early and take revenge on Asher with me. This is my number, you can call me anytime. I couldn't help but scoff, mocking his utterly ridiculous dream. Asher will be moved by me one day, unless he is a block of stone. I crumpled that business card and casually tossed it into the trash can. But now, I hold it in my palm as if it were a treasure. After a long while, the man's hand holding the wine glass paused, and the corners of his mouth gradually lifted into a smile. Good. He hung up the phone, a smug smile spreading across his face. Sorry everyone, I have to step out for a moment. My girlfriend is at the door without her keys. Oh, Xander, this is quite the situation. Asher is hugging his ex-girlfriend, squinting as he looks Xander up and down. Xander smiled faintly. Amidst the cheers of the crowd, he stood up and swaggered out of the private room. The breeze along the way was sweet. He had finally dug into Asher's corner. 10 minutes later, a gray luxury car stopped at the villa entrance. Xander, looking pleased, closed the car door and walked up to me. Evelyn, what brings you here today? He smiled gently, his voice lowered, and there was a meaning in his eyes that I couldn't comprehend. I took out a crumpled business card and weakly asked, is this still useful? Xander glanced at it casually. I stood at the door, at a loss, gripping the handle of my suitcase tightly, not daring to meet Xander's gaze. He snatched my suitcase and walked into the villa, his lazy voice echoing in the empty space, silly, my things are always useful. After Xander brought me to the room, he left with a remark, this is for you, and then turned and vanished. His arm brushed lightly against my arm, and my body tingled as if a current had passed through it. When I was with Asher, there was never a room for me in his villa. According to him, as long as we weren't married, I had no right to live in his big house. I could only take a taxi back to my rented room after finishing the hangover soup in the middle of the night. Looking back now, I can only see myself as a self-inflicted clown. After packing up my luggage, I felt a bit dizzy and wanted to go downstairs to get a glass of water. As soon as I opened the door, I bumped into Xander's solid chest. His deep voice reached my ears, what's wrong? Evelyn? Are you feeling unwell? He reached out to touch my forehead, hissing, why is it so hot? I was so dazed that I couldn't say a word, only feeling Xander put down his pajamas and pick me up as he walked outside. His shirt was open, revealing glimpses of his chest muscles. Xander held me in the back seat, wiping his wet hair with a towel. As the driver made a sharp turn, I fell against Xander's abs. They were hard, not very comfortable to lie on, but nice to touch. Xander's hand paused as he dried his hair, the air pressure inside the car was extremely low, and I could hear 2 hearts pounding. The moment he reached out to touch me, I weakly spoke, Xander, I don't have the strength anymore. Xander stroked my back, his tone calm and unhurried, it's okay, just lie down and rest well. I don't know how long it had been, but I had fallen into a deep sleep. When I opened my eyes again, the figure before me was no longer Xander, but Asher. Ah. I was startled, but Asher thought I was just being coy. This time it was a new trick, making himself sick to win my sympathy, using this opportunity to keep me away from Jessica. You really are quite scheming. He smiled helplessly, as if he had already seen through my little act. I was shocked by his audacity. I didn't expect him to send a voice message in the group the next second, Evelyn is causing trouble again. This time she's using her illness as a threat. Let's put my issues with Jessica on hold for a while. He sends messages like this to his good brother right in front of me every time. I don't know how many times this has happened. I couldn't take it anymore and sneered, "Can you just get lost? I don't want to see you again." Asher's hand on the screen paused in disbelief, and he looked up with a piercing gaze. "Is that enough? Did you give me too much face?" I repeated, "Get lost, okay?" He stood up, his eyes fixed on me. "I've given you a chance, don't regret it, Evelyn." He then picked up his phone and commanded, "Our trip with Jessica will go on as planned. Also, prepare 999 roses for her as a surprise." After saying this, Asher shot me a provocative glance, watching my expression. I frowned slightly. Asher thought I had finally given in, a victorious smile curling at the corners of his mouth as he turned away without looking back. But I was staring at Xander outside the window, watching his expression darken, a bad feeling creeping into my heart. The millet porridge in his hand was about to be crushed by his veiny, large hand. After a while, he strode into the ward, one hand propped against the bed's railing, his gloomy face drawing closer to mine, his warm breath dampening the tip of my nose. "Calling to sell your misery to make Asher feel sorry for your illness, deliberately drawing his attention?" His deep voice seemed to reveal a hint of displeasure. In a moment of impulse, I reached out and wrapped my arms around Xander's neck. "I didn't." Xander's face quickly flushed a deep red, spreading to the roots of his ears. He stuffed the porridge into my arms and picked me up, heading out the door. "Where to?" "Home. So that someone won't always be thinking about it." I looked up at Xander. His Adam's apple was prominent, and his jawline was smooth, impossibly beautiful. I pretended to lower my head, glancing at the sexy, tight muscle lines beneath his shirt, swallowing hard. "Don't look around." "Oh." After being caught, I pressed my lips together and obediently leaned against him. I could clearly feel Xander take a deep breath, his arms around me gradually tightening. After the driver opened the car door, Xander placed me in the back seat. Just as he was about to pull away, I heard a familiar voice. How could Xander, who had never been sick, have time to come to the hospital? It was Asher. I wanted to peek out, but Xander's palm pressed against my cheek and pushed me back. "Thanks for your concern, Asher. I'm here to take my girlfriend home." Xander blocked me completely. It wasn't until Asher left that he sat down next to me and closed the car door. Through the window, I saw Asher walking towards the hospital room with my favorite millet porridge in hand. Perhaps I was overthinking it. How could he possibly remember what I loved to drink? "What are you looking at?" Coming back to my senses, I realized that Xander was staring at me intently. "When did I agree to be your girlfriend?" He didn't say a word, slowly leaning closer to me. Until he covered my head with his suit, blocking my entire view. "Now, is it okay?" Xander's magnetic voice rang in my ear. He gently bit my earlobe, his voice muffled and laced with soft gasps. "Xander." I tried to push him away, but as I reached out, my hand brushed against his bulging muscles. It was then that I realized he had unbuttoned his shirt completely. "Don't you like to touch? Here you go." Xander's voice was magnetically alluring, and after he spoke, his lips pressed tightly against mine, while his other hand grasped my wrist, groping wildly on his chest. The sudden kiss hit me like a storm, overwhelming and filled with intense possessiveness, utterly rough. My heart felt like it was about to leap out of my chest, and my body was as unbearably hot as before. Until Xander's kiss landed on my collarbone, bringing a slight pain. He gently caressed my face, breathing heavily. Xander roughly threw me onto the bed, unbuttoning his shirt in 2 or 3 swift motions, and tossing it aside. He pressed me firmly beneath him, his greedy gaze sweeping over every inch of my body. I placed my hand on Xander's neck, as if I had triggered some kind of switch. He leaned down to kiss my neck, again and again, more fiercely, as if he wanted to merge me into his body. The waves of sharp pain from my neck made me unable to suppress a soft moan. Xander seemed to be fueled with adrenaline, becoming even more frenzied. His hand slipped under my shirt, gently gliding across my back. With a soft sound, I heard Xander's light laughter. At that moment, the butler shouted from downstairs, "Xander, someone has come to visit." An unsatisfied Xander angrily retorted, "Tell him to get lost." "But he is Asher." "TSK. What a hassle." Xander complained impatiently, yet he lingered, lifting my chin and gently kissing my lips. He then picked up the shirt from the floor and slipped into the bathroom. I took a mirror and looked at the large red mark on my neck. This was Xander's recent achievement. So ruthless. It felt as if he had been holding back for hundreds of years. Listening to the sound of the shower splashing from the bathroom, I quietly fastened my buttons and placed a towel on the bathroom doorknob. After Xander came out, he grabbed the towel from the doorknob and roughly rubbed it on his hair before opening the door and heading downstairs. He turned back to glance at me, reminding me to wait patiently for his return. I grabbed his wrist, and after 2 or 3 seconds of silence, I asked, "Xander, do you like me?" He reversed my wrist, pulling me into his embrace and giving me a deep kiss. "From the moment I first saw you, I loved you to the core." Then Xander kissed my forehead again, telling me to wait for him to come back. The door was half ajar, and I could clearly hear the conversation between Asher and Xander. Now, just hearing Asher's voice made me feel nauseous. The hall was empty, and the echoes of their voices filled the villa. There was also a woman. It was his ex-girlfriend, Jessica. Why does Asher have the time to bring his fiancée here as a guest? Xander's tone was flippant. Asher chuckled lightly twice. Jessica had nowhere to go, so she came here to stay for a night. Stay? Why not just let Jessica go to Asher's villa directly? I changed into the pink pajamas that Xander brought me, crouching down stealthily on the stairs to watch them talk. No way, Asher. My girlfriend will be mad. Isn't it inconvenient for you to bring Jessica over there? Xander clearly rejected Asher. Your girlfriend isn't home again, so what are you afraid of? Today, Evelyn is coming to my house to make me a hangover soup. I'm worried she'll get angry if she sees Jessica. She's sick, and I don't want to upset her anymore. I'll show her a good face today to calm her down, and tomorrow I'll take Jessica out for a trip. Asher took a cigarette pack out of his pocket and paused. She seemed to be very seriously ill and had already been transferred to the hospital. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. I had never seen such a narcissistic guy. Asher thought I would still follow him wholeheartedly, believing that whatever he did was taken for granted by me, his fiancée. Today, Evelyn might not come to your house to make hangover soup. My girlfriend is at home, and we are already living together, which is not very convenient. Suddenly, Asher seemed to sense something, his gaze fixed directly on the elevator entrance. My heart raced as I pressed my hand against my chest. Fortunately, I hid before he did, so I wasn't seen. As I looked further down, I saw Xander's face pale with anger, his gaze locking onto mine. I was lying on the stairs, with only my eyes peeking out, blinking. To Asher's surprise, he was so foolish and slow-witted that he didn't catch Xander's insinuation and confidently denied him. No, she won't. She goes every day. Even if she doesn't make soup, she'll still cook for me. No more talking, it's almost time, I have to go wait for her. Later, I'll take Jessica to the hotel to stay. I won't disturb you and your girlfriend's lovely evening. Asher wore a wicked smile, and after saying that, he wrapped his arms around Jessica and disappeared from my sight. Hearing the sound of a car starting outside, Xander marched towards me with clenched fists, furious. It's over. We're doomed. Xander walked up the stairs and grabbed my collar, speaking fiercely. Are you still going to make soup for him today? I was terrified, tears welling up in my eyes. Only then did he soften his attitude, crouching down and patiently comforting me. All right, I won't be fierce with you anymore. Come on, I'll take you to buy your favorite little dress. How does he know that I love wearing little dresses? Changing into my clothes and heading downstairs, I saw Xander's tall figure standing at the door. I'm here. I rushed and leaped into his arms, and Xander caught me steadily. It was the first time sitting in someone else's passenger seat, and I felt quite pleased. The evening breeze was cool against my face, so refreshing. All the way, my mind kept wandering, thinking about when I first met Xander. My mind doesn't work very well. It seems like I've spent the first half of my life revolving around Asher. I can't remember anything except Asher. When the light turned red, Xander unexpectedly kissed me. What's wrong? Can't I kiss my own girlfriend? I lowered my head, my cheeks flushed and silent, while Xander's face was full of displeasure. Still thinking about Asher? I quickly shook my head in denial. Xander's expression softened a little. During the pause while he answered the phone, I caught a glimpse of his wallpaper. It was a picture of me in a little dress from a company team-building event. At that time, I didn't even know Asher. How do you have my photo? I furrowed my brow in suspicion. He can't be a voyeur, can he? Am I really in a relationship with a voyeur? Xander's smile was full of smugness. The first time I saw you was 5 years ago. Back then, you loved to wear little dresses. 5 years ago, I had not yet met Asher. At that time, I had just graduated from college and loved to dress up beautifully to go to work every day. Later, I met Asher. He said that being in our 20s, I shouldn't wear skirts to look youthful. Since then, I haven't touched my favorite things again. Now looking at the photo on Xander's phone, smiling brightly and radiantly. Even I envy it. But later, you ended up with Asher. I was filled with resentment all day long. In the end, he didn't cherish you and ended up ruining himself, and heaven gave me another chance. When Xander smiled, his eyes were full of happiness and possessiveness. Xander dotes on me, he bought every piece of clothing I tried on. I happily twirled in front of Xander wearing the last purple dress. Does it look good? It looks great. My wife is stunning. Xander's hand wrapped around my waist, nuzzling my neck like a little cat. I love you the most, Xander. As soon as the words left his mouth, Xander pulled me into the changing room, gripping the back of my neck, his warm lips eagerly pressing against mine. Change your clothes quickly, let's go home and do it, he urged, turning and stepping out of the changing room. Just as I finished changing my clothes and was about to go out, Xander handed me a white dress. Then, I heard Asher's voice again. Xander signaled me not to go out and to stay obediently in the fitting room. It's that jinx again, always ruining my good fortune. Xander gritted his teeth, his eyes betraying an uncontrollable rage. What a coincidence. Xander, you're out shopping with your girlfriend too. Although Asher was with Jessica, his tone was clearly not very friendly. Xander seemed to nod, but I didn't hear his response. Asher continued to speak to himself. You really hit the nail on the head. Brother. Evelyn didn't make me any hangover soup today. Do you think she's really angry this time? Is she playing hard to get, just waiting for me to back down? Asher's tone carried a hint of gloom and sorrow for the first time. Ha, perhaps she has developed feelings for someone else. Who can understand the thoughts of a young girl? Xander couldn't help but laugh. The Evelyn he mentioned spent the whole night with Xander buying little dresses. How could she possibly have time to make soup for him? After a 2-second silence, Asher impatiently spoke up. It's impossible, she can't leave me. She'll be back in a few days. His thick-skinned remark made me laugh. Wait for your girlfriend to come out, and then we can go drink together. We haven't even met Mrs. Xander yet, she's so well hidden. Is she afraid someone will steal her away? Asher seized the opportunity to change the subject, constantly teasing Xander. He would never embarrass himself in front of Xander. I tightly grasped the hem of my white dress, unsure of what his expression would be when he saw me with Xander. I'm afraid. There are always some petty people who have their eyes on my wife, so I must carefully protect her. My heart skipped a beat. A warm current unexpectedly surged from my heart. Asher looked down on it. I knew that his relationship with Xander was merely superficial. Although they called each other brothers, the truth was that he despised Xander the most in his heart. Wherever Xander was, he always dressed sharply and sprayed on his favorite cologne. After 2 years of smelling it, I couldn't help but feel nauseous at the scent now. Because Xander is a cool and aloof flower on a high peak. Xander's allure is always greater than Asher's. He likes the way I flatter and support him because there are many admirers around Xander, while there is only me by Asher's side. He enjoys the feeling of being similar to Xander, but he doesn't have it. Where Xander is, no one pays attention to Asher. Asher handed Xander 2 golden invitations, inviting him to bring his girlfriend to Jessica's birthday party in half a month. I was still wondering if Xander would refuse, but to my surprise, he agreed immediately. Good. Asher also advised him not to let anything slip, lest it reach my ears. He was afraid I would ruin his event. After seeing the invitation, I finally understood why Asher invited Xander. At Jessica's birthday party, Asher would be in charge. So the invitations were extended to all the prominent socialites. Since he hadn't heard of any heiress from the wealthy circle dating Xander, it indicated that Mrs. Xander held no significant status. At that time, Asher took the opportunity to elevate himself while belittling Xander. Asher is very concerned about his image. In situations like this, he cannot tolerate anyone who is better than him. Are you really going to go? I looked at Xander with concern. It was just my simple guess, but he was no longer Asher. Go on, why not? I still want to take you with me. Xander bought the last white dress, wrapped it up, and handed it to me. Wear this. Although I haven't seen Asher in a long time, my name is mentioned all day in their group of brothers. Asher, I wonder how long Evelyn's teasing strategy can last. Song, Asher, she can't be hiding under the covers crying all night, can she? Lee, exactly, this little girl cares too much about her pride. A little coaxing from Asher will do the trick. Wang, if Asher takes the initiative to find her, Evelyn will definitely be overjoyed and cling to Asher, and then Asher won't be able to shake her off, it'll be for a lifetime. Xander couldn't stand it any longer and quickly typed on the keyboard. Xander, maybe she has already fallen in love with someone else. Asher, impossible, she can't live without me. Lee, exactly, Evelyn would love to become Mrs. Asher. Wang, she won't marry anyone but Asher in this lifetime. Xander angrily took me to get our marriage certificate. On the day we got the certificate, we also took a photo and happily posted it on social media. The caption read, I have a wife now, I don't want to talk to people without a wife. Asher commented, after I made up with Evelyn, I also went to get the marriage certificate. Of course, he would go. No matter what it is, he would never be one step behind Xander. Including getting married, obtaining the certificate, and having children, they can always compete on speed. Originally, Asher had not appeared in my life for 2 weeks. This made Xander extremely happy. He transformed into a master chef in the kitchen, cooking a variety of dishes every day to cheer me up. Asher, I don't know whose advice he took, got himself drunk that night and called me. When I was getting ready for bed that evening, I received Asher's call. Gone was his usual cold, commanding tone, he sounded like he was drunk, asking me to come pick him up. Evelyn, can you come take me home? I want to drink the hangover soup you make. If you make me the hangover soup, I'll forgive you. In a few days, it will be Jessica's birthday party. Ugh. Stop messing around, I will take you there and propose to you on the spot. Forgive me, ugh. Just hearing that makes me feel nauseous. I was about to turn over and hang up the phone when I caught a whiff of an inexplicable sour smell. Xander pulled me into his arms with a dark expression. What are you doing? You want to go pick up Asher, right? Don't even think about it. Xander's eyes were filled with anger. I didn't know who had provoked him, but he forcefully pinned me down, his warm breath lingering by my ear as he bit down hard on my lip. I let out a soft moan, wrapping my legs around his waist and kissing him back fiercely. Xander took off his shirt, revealing his perfect muscular lines. I realized something was wrong and reached out to hang up the phone. Xander firmly gripped my wrist, leaving me unable to move, forced to go along with his wishes. Don't hang up, let him listen. After all, he was the one who called. Asher heard Xander's voice suddenly roar in anger. Evelyn, have you grown wings? Who is that man next to you? Who is talking? Evelyn, what are you doing? Evelyn, don't let me catch that man, or I'll break his legs, Evelyn. Asher was hoarsely calling my name. The only response he received was a few heavy gasps from Xander. On the other end of the phone, his shouts echoed. Xander, I'm scared. I pretended to look wronged and burrowed into Xander's arms. I didn't know when Asher hung up the phone. All I knew was that Xander that night seemed to be in a berserk mode, with endless strength and energy. After Asher's phone call, my name never appeared in the group again. In the blink of an eye, it was Jessica's birthday party. I put on that white dress and applied a light makeup. Xander's gaze towards me was filled with greed and possessiveness. Xander, take good care of Mrs. Xander. What if someone else runs off with her, looking so beautiful? The butler joked with Xander, smiling. His face grew even darker. The grip on my hand gradually tightened. My hand was being squeezed to the point of pain, and I struggled a couple of times. Unexpectedly, he held on even tighter. Xander, in pain, finally realized that he was holding on too tightly and kept apologizing to me. I'm sorry, Evelyn. I'm really afraid of losing you to someone else. I worked so hard to win you over, otherwise, I wouldn't have been friends with that jerk Asher for so long. After being with Xander for so long, it was the first time I saw his little face looking so wronged, with red-rimmed eyes. All the way, he held me tightly. When we reached the door, Xander gentlemanly took my hand and led me into the banquet. At first, Asher didn't notice him. He looked around and then saw Xander. It was only when Asher came over with Jessica to toast Xander that he noticed me next to him. Asher's mouth fell open in disbelief. I don't know if they were surprised that my look today is quite different from before, or if they were sighing at how I am a perfect match with Xander. In the moment of Asher's daze, Xander introduced her. This is Mrs. Xander, Evelyn, who has obtained a marriage certificate with me. Asher suddenly realized upon hearing this. That night, were you two together? You and Evelyn? Xander nodded. Asher, filled with affirmation, flew into a rage, smashing the glass wine cup and immediately punching Xander. I gently stroked the bleeding corner of his mouth, a wave of guilt washing over me. Xander patted my head to comfort me. It's okay, Evelyn. Stay to the side, don't get hurt. Asher, who witnessed everything, had veins bulging on his forehead, his angry face twisted into a terrifying grimace. I knew Xander wasn't one to be trifled with either, but I didn't want him to get hurt. Xander threw a punch back and kicked Asher 2 meters away. Asher, defeated and humiliated, lost his temper and overturned several tables of pastries. Seeing this, Jessica stepped forward to help Asher up, sweetly saying, "Get lost." Jessica was taken aback, not understanding why Asher was shouting at her during her birthday party. I told you to get lost, didn't you hear? What kind of birthday party is this? Just get out. Then Asher pointed at Xander in exasperation. Don't you know that Evelyn is my fiancée, Xander? You two have been together for a long time, haven't you? That day in the fitting room was also you two, and the white dress, and that day in the hospital, it was you who took Evelyn away? Asher recalled every moment he met Xander, and I was always there by his side. We haven't been in a relationship for a long time, Asher. I've already returned your $9.09 ring. We didn't hold a formal engagement party, so I can't be considered your fiancé. I stood in front of Xander, countering Asher. Asher knelt in front of me with a thud. He grasped the hem of my dress and softly pleaded, "Evelyn, can you come back to me? I promise I will never stray again, I won't be fickle, I only like you, can that be enough? After you left, I realized I truly can't live without you. I've grown accustomed to your presence, and no one can replace you." I hadn't had a chance to speak yet when Xander pulled me back a step. "Don't touch my wife's dress." Asher's crimson eyes fiercely glared at Xander, suddenly standing up and wreaking havoc throughout the banquet hall. Even the walls were left in disarray from his grasp. The guests attending the banquet were taken aback by his behavior, quickly pulling out their phones to capture this precious moment. I glanced at the camera nearby, having already realized what trick Asher was playing. Unfortunately, the reporter only recorded his crazy antics. The next day, the internet was flooded with discussions about the Shin family. Asher had done such a thing, bringing shame to the Shin family, and was stripped of his status as heir. He was indifferent, stubbornly insisting that I return to his side. I find Asher really strange. When I shower him with affection, he repeatedly tests my limits to highlight his sense of superiority. It was only after I left him that he grabbed my skirt and told me he loved me. What good is that? Xander, may I ask you, as the youngest entrepreneur, do you have any secrets to share with everyone? I heard that you have no male friends besides Evelyn, is that true? Xander was surrounded by reporters at the press conference and had no choice but to answer their questions one by one. The secret to success is to love your wife and pamper her. Yes, I only play with my wife. The saying that those who neglect their wives will have no wealth is true. My wife came to pick me up. The reporters followed Xander's gaze and saw me just as I got out of the car to pick up Xander. Xander saw me running faster than anyone else. A large group of reporters couldn't keep up with him either. When the car started, I saw Asher's figure in the rearview mirror. After Jessica's party that day, he abstained from alcohol and no longer flirted around. Instead, he would occasionally appear by my side, in places where I could see him. At first, he would come to talk to me, asking me to reconcile or just to be ordinary friends. Gradually, he only stood at a distance, watching my happiness. Evelyn, one day Xander will grow tired of you. When that time comes and you two get divorced, can you give me a chance? I have always loved you, and I will wait for you. I didn't know that even after blocking several of his numbers, Asher could still text me. He has changed his number several times, yet he still messages you. He even curses our breakup. This person is really haunting us. Every time Xander sees a message from Asher, he gets extremely jealous. Asher held on for 5 years. He finally waited for the family marriage. On the day he got married, he also invited me and Xander. He married a girl he did not love. But that girl was very fond of him. During the toast, he looked desperately into my eyes. I didn't expect Xander to protect you so well. I didn't have a single opportunity. He raised his wine glass, his appearance greatly diminished from before, as if he had aged 10 years. Happy wedding. Treat your girlfriend well. Since then, Asher would occasionally appear beside me. But each time, Xander would be standing next to me, watching Asher warily. Asher was like a clown peeking at my happiness. Yet the happiness he craved had once belonged to him. Back then, Xander was the one who was the voyeur.